I have wondered if any of y'all are seeing this uptick of a particular question on other YouTube channels. Why isn't there another suspect? If you're so certain Brian Kohlberger is innocent, or you believe that there is reasonable doubt, who is the other suspect? But this is, at the end of the day, a question that can't be answered. It's almost like just a talking point where if all you can do is speculate, the counter to that is, well, it's just speculation. So why haven't the authorities named another suspect? So why hasn't any individual named anybody on this particular platform or others if they believe Brian Kohlberger is innocent or have doubt? The natural response to all this would be, well, nobody wants to get sued. But there might be a little more to this that deserves talking about. It is a fair question, and that's exactly what we're going to do today. And if an open conversation is something you prefer, then this is the place for you. Welcome to The Point, so let's talk about it.
Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
Why haven't I named another suspect? I'm starting to see a lot of this, and the timing of it is a little weird. It's almost as if somebody else has made a video saying, why can't all these people who believe he's innocent or who are questioning the authorities in this case, why haven't they named a suspect? And while I answer that question, I would like everybody who has recently wrote me or happened to say this on other channels asking that particular question, why do you believe so certainly that he is guilty given what we know in its entirety, which is very little? There is no evidence that places him inside the home. The cell phone pings don't place him in the home. They place him in the area or the neighborhood or the town, depending on what expert you like to listen to. And considering the fact that this perpetrator would have left that home looking like he walked off the set of Carrie during the crime scene, why have they not found a ton of evidence in his car and in his home linking him to the crime scene? So there are points and counterpoints to this thing. But the primary reason nobody on here is naming other suspects and swearing up and down other people did it is, quite frankly, they don't want to be sued. That is a small piece of it. But to the question, why has there not been another suspect named? Well, all we can do at this point is speculate. Nobody on this platform or any other platform has full access to the police file with this case. Nobody has full access to what questions were asked, to what potential suspects, who gave a DNA test and who didn't. And the reason the police aren't naming other suspects is, why would they? Are they not building this entire case around the idea and notion that Brian Kohlberger acted alone and was the sole perpetrator of this crime? That is what they're saying. That is what the state is saying. So naming another suspect doesn't help them in their overall case. And we can't so easily disregard the unidentified male DNA. Yes, of course, it was a party home. I understand that. Would there not be tons of unidentified DNA in that home? I mean, possibly. If we're being rational and we're being logical and we're just trying to look at this, yes, there should be more DNA in that home that is not identified. Unless, of course, the authorities have somehow managed to positively identify absolutely every speck of DNA in that home with the exception of that small group of unidentified male DNA. Look, nobody on this particular platform is necessarily naming suspects. And whose job is it to name suspects? Well, it would be the authorities to name suspects. But they're not going to name anybody else tied to this case if they believe they have their guy. It would not fall on the defense at this point to run through all of these files and start identifying potential suspects either. Their job is to cast doubt. And I get that rubs a whole lot of people the wrong way. There's a truck coming down the road, beep, beep, beep. But when you look at the totality of this trial, on the prosecution side, you had the prosecutor and his team of individuals. You had the Moscow Police Department, the Leyte Police Department. You had the Idaho State Police, the FBI. And whether they mean it or not, most of the mainstream press, all working towards proving Brian Kohlberger committed this act. All Brian Kohlberger has is his defense team. Yes, in terms of public defenders, he has a whole lot more attorneys than most would, but it's a high-profile case. That small defense team is working against the entire state at this point. They don't have time to sift through all this evidence to start identifying potential suspects. This is not the movies. I understand we have speculated some. I would like to think I have speculated within reason. I certainly haven't said I am absolutely right on anything. But in terms of having an overall conversation about this from as many sides as possible, receiving the question, who is the suspect if it's not Brian Kohlberger, is absolutely a loaded question in my opinion. You can't do anything but speculate on this channel. It is certainly easy to say Brian Kohlberger is the guy. To read a news article and say, well, this reporter said this from this anonymous source, it's true, he's guilty, fine. I'm not telling anybody how they need to think or how they need to approach this case. Just with me, I have some doubts. I have some questions. I am not saying he didn't do it 100%. I'm saying I need to see more, and I felt like I've been pretty clear about it, but I have noticed that question recently, and I would wonder if y'all have seen it as well. Nobody here covering this case on social media is going to point blank give a name because nobody can. We don't have the files, we don't have the interviews, we don't know what all the authorities have done or not done. And from everything I have seen, when detectives and when investigators hone in on an individual, there does seem to be a lot of scenarios where the blinders come on. It's a tireless job. It requires a lot of work. It requires a lot of leg work. It requires a lot of man hours. I understand. So when they get a beat on something, they tend to focus just on that one thing. And at that point, a lot of things can fall to the side. I understand the notion here is with the investigative tools and with the equipment at hand, the technology at hand, when the authorities name a suspect, usually that person did it. I would still tend to disagree, which is why we have appeals. And if the authorities were always right, there would be no reason to have trials to begin with. We have trials because investigators aren't always 100% right. We have appeals because verdicts aren't necessarily always 100% right. Things get left out. New evidence comes to light. And once again, before you disregard what I'm saying, that whole Delphi situation is a little crazy. We now have these accusations with the Murdaugh trial. So I feel like at this point, the whole reason investigators have not named another suspect is quite frankly, they're not going to. It doesn't benefit them to. All that would do is cast further doubt into their claim that Brian Kohlberger acted solely. Did he do it? I don't know. Did he not do it? I don't know. Having doubt and the presumption of innocence is a part of this judicial process. It should not be so controversial for individuals to ask questions. Nobody working on this case right now on the state side is going to name another suspect. That's not going to happen. The defense, on the other hand, doesn't necessarily have the time to go down that path at this particular moment. Now, will they in the future? We will see. If they come across something in an interview and they have somebody who can go out and further investigate it, things may come to light. But at this particular point, they're still trying to get all the evidence. And when a group of individuals is still trying to get all the evidence, how on earth are they going to have time to start chasing down leads and other potential suspects? It's not their job to begin with. Their focus is on casting doubt. That is what they're there to do. That is their primary function. At this particular point in the trial, that is their primary function. Down the road, we will see. If there is a scenario where he is found guilty here, okay. But in the appeal process, new evidence comes to light. It has happened before. Then we can go down that road when it happens. But that is the reason nobody is naming another suspect at this time. That is the reason nobody on this platform raising questions or having doubt is naming a suspect at this time. We just don't know all the evidence, which circles back to my original question. Since we do not have all the evidence, how can you all be so certain he did it? Cell phone pings and a little bit of DNA are not placing him inside the home. Now, I'm willing to acknowledge the potential facts that they have way more than what we're being told. How solid it is and how well the prosecution can tie that all together in an argument to convince a jury he did it, we will have to see. But if I'm willing to at least go that far in this particular conversation, you should all be at least willing to say, we believe he did it, but we understand there's a possibility that he might not have. Because the timelines have changed. The vehicle has changed. Nothing places him inside the home. There is no evidence found in his car that we know of. There's nothing in his apartment that we know of. And it is a bit scary that people are so quick to cast guilt in the public eye with so little. If you see any of this differently or have a perspective different than mine, that's fine. Let me know down in the comments below. Other than that, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you being here. Y'all stay safe, and I'll catch you in the next one.